the interstate is over there. As you can see, we're about a half a mile off. We came from exit 257 that way, and we think, well, this is a monument of something, and we think it's a Mormon Battalion monument. We'll see. And it looks like we're the only ones here, and have been here for a long time, because nobody has walked on this snow. This is pristine snow here. Let's see, yep, it says U.S. Mormon Battalion, so this is dedicated to the Mormon Battalion. Let's see what the plaque says, Denise.
Oh,
because you know,
the plaque. Always.
Never the comments.
Yeah.
What does it say? The Mormon Battalion composed 500 men mustered in the service of the United States War.
United States in the war with Mexico. It was called to the colors as the Mormon pioneers were beginning their historic trek to the Rocky Mountains. At the conclusion of the 2,000-mile march from Council Bluffs, Iowa to San Diego, California, the leader who took command at Santa Fe paid tribute to his men in part as follows. History may be searched in vain for an equal march of infantry. Half of it has been through a wilderness where nothing but something that somebody didn't want to read, probably wild Indians, and wild beasts are found, or deserts where for want of water there is no living creature.
Savages.
Ah.
That's what was erased.
Yes. There with almost hopeless labor we have dug wells, which the future traveler will enjoy. Without a guide who would traverse them, we have ventured into trackless tablelands where water was not found for several marches. With crowbar and pick and axe in hand, we have worked our way over the mountains, which seem to defy aught save the wild goat, and hewed a pass through the chasm of living rock, more narrow than our wagons, to bring these first wagons of the Pacific. We have preserved the strength of our mules by herding them over large tracts, which you may have laboriously guarded without loss. Thus, marching half naked and half fed and living upon wild animals, we have discovered and made a road of great value to our country.
Okay. This part of the national park is open, and the main part of Petroglyphs National Forest is closed, but they allow us to go to this part that's being run by state volunteers and that are collecting trash. So I see some, it's a snowy trail, but I do see some petroglyphs up here, so I'm gonna go look and see what we can see up here. The sign was interesting because it said, basically you're on your own. Very good detail, this man, and it appears like maybe he's got a flute. He's got antlers on his head. And this guy over here, and there's this mask. This other guy, he's dancing. Very interesting. You can see it very clearly over there. I don't know what that is. Looks like maybe a rabbit. This is fascinating. It's obvious to me that this plateau up here where I'm at was used for some kind of ceremony. And I have to be careful because it's slippery, so I'm going to turn off the camera again. An old volcano. I'm on the Macaw Trail now, and I can already see from the distance some awesome looking hieroglyphs. Some got a peace sign up here, obviously new, but some other ones are older than that, so just very interesting. I'm up close to one. This one's like really close, and what's interesting is you can see that the texture is different. Like, these were actually carved into the lava bed, and the area around it was made smooth, and then they carved their shapes and designs into it. A little bit up on the trail I can see another one that looks like antlers. Just very interesting. Looks like maybe a yucca pod is what I'm thinking this one is. Symboling like birth of a plant. My personal interpretation there. Very interesting. There's some graffiti, but I mean, geez, these look like aliens. And up there on the rock over there, I can see a snake. Looks like a rattlesnake. And I do see a circle up there, so I'm going to try to climb up and get to that circle. Up here, just a few steps up, I can see a circle. Looks like conch shell, or maybe a center or a target. But the center or target of what, I don't know. Looks like all these rocks came from up above there. But the trail doesn't go that far up, and I don't feel like climbing up another plateau again. So probably will not get up there. Nice view. I'm really not learning any lessons about like
What?
I'm not learning any lessons about not ordering big.
No, you're failing.
Failing at this point. I'm in the Albuquerque Snake Museum, Rattlesnake Museum, and there's a lot of different snakes in here. Here's a mottled black-tailed rattlesnake. They're mostly asleep, but I mean, what do you expect? But they're out, so it's kind of cool. Thought most of these were all asleep, but this guy's awake.
I'm not going to try it out, of course. It's found all over much of Asia, and several species are found in Africa.
This guy is not venomous though.
Common snake.
This is one of the
Southern
most
Pacific
formed, the
rattlesnake.
cobra, highly venomous and about 4
He
meters,
might look like he's
14
asleep,
feet long.
but I saw him moving. He's not asleep.
Disputes
He's
between
just
rival
staring at me
male
now.
king cobras are potentially very dangerous indeed, for this species specializes in eating other kinds of snakes. So they observe strict rules in their fights.
We are in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in front of a pile of dirt, Denise.
I just barely heard, because I'm a couple weeks behind on my podcast, a 99% Invisible episode, a podcast episode, about the display that's behind us. And Albuquerque is a place of 3 cultures: the Spanish culture, the American Anglo culture, and the Native American culture. And the podcast was all about At the time of Albuquerque's 400th anniversary, which was only a couple years ago, in preparation for that, they wanted to create a memorial, and the first suggestion was to honor Oñate, the first Spanish conquistador to come to the area. He already has several memorials, but they wanted to maybe do another one. But he was a pretty typical conquistador, which means he was pretty brutal to the native peoples of the Albuquerque area. And so they resisted that idea, and resisted would be a...
You should explain that they already had a monument.
Yes, there was a hidden, a more obscure Oñate monument. Not to mention there's Oñate streets, Oñate elementary schools, Oñate anyway.
And what happened to that other obscure monument?
Oh, it got in the news. The people, the Native Americans, went and sawed off the foot of it, somehow removed the foot of the monument.
Which is why they needed a new monument.
Or they think they just wanted one for the celebration. But in a symbol, the removing the foot was not random violence. It was a symbol of something Oñate had done to native men who had risen up and tried to resist his taking over.
Yeah,
but
anybody above the age of 24
male,
their
got a foot removed. So after much discussion and wrangling and much to the consternation of native rights supporters, the Pueblos, the supporters of the Pueblos, they did go ahead with an Oñate memorial, which we'll see in a minute, next to and also a memorial designed by an artist from the Pueblos.
Okay. Kind of I would call it a conch shell type pattern here, with lots of cactuses. And as you walk around, the idea is you lose total sight of the museum up above, of Oñate. And it's like you're going back to the center, back to the beginning. And most people coming here don't come here, but those who know come to the center. We are on about 10 miles off I-25 on a very unpaved road, about a mile away from Fort Craig, looking at wide open vistas here. I think maybe those white buildings up ahead might be the fort, and hopefully it's open. We'll see what's up. So we have discovered that this is a BLM site and that the visitor center is closed, which is expected. You can see here a map of the structures and some historical trail signs. And coming up on some old ruins of the fort, so that's where I'm going to walk to now. So you could say, Denise, that you visited a Civil War battlefield site.
I have, not exactly where I expected to visit a Civil War battlefield site, but yes.
Over here is, it was built in 2014, but it's showing what the bastions of the Civil War would have looked like in the 1800s. Where here they fought a war over New Mexico between the Confederates and the Union soldiers. This structure here was the Sallyport guardhouse, but it was also the prison. And it's cold out here. You can see Denise, she's all bundled up. And as you can tell, it would have been a cold way to get into the fort from here. I would not want to have to be a prisoner out here, especially in the winter time. So this is talking about Colonel Canby and Colonel Sibley, who met here for the Civil War. And according to what the plaque said, basically New Mexico was lost from the Confederacy because the Texans treated the Hispanics really badly, And so the locals did not support the Confederates at all because they were tired of being treated badly. And that gave way to the Union soldiers. According to this plaque here, we're on what would have been the overlook for the Union troops for the Battle of Valverde. This war was a tie. It's been disputed whether or not it was a Confederate victory or not. But basically they stalemated out here. The Union troops couldn't really communicate effectively. They had a bunch of Hispanic volunteers with them from New Mexico who didn't speak English, and there was a lot of distrust, and the Confederates were kind of sick by the time they got over here, and so they were eventually forced to move on. So the Union soldiers kept the fort, but it was at a high cost, and they were surrounded once the Confederates walked by. Right now we are on top of those defensive battleworks just behind the visitor center that you can see, and here you can see a behind view of the adobe defense works. These extra walls here were constructed between 1861 and 1862 while the Confederate Army went through Texas and conquered Texas. They built up these walls, and this was where the Union soldiers held the line for the Union up north.